Hello.
Bonjour.
Welcome back to my kitchen. This is my Christmas video that I probably should have recorded last month to be in time for Christmas. So this might not be fully in time for Christmas. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to make a Christmas hamper. So it's like a gift you can give to people, and it's very exciting.
Right.
What? Why are you laughing at me?
Nine.
What?
I'm not laughing at you, where do you go?
What is it?
I don't know. You were just like a hamper, which is like a gift you give to people.
I don't know what to say.
That's okay. Continue. You wanted me in your videos, you know what happens every time I am.
How would I say it? How would you say it?
I'm making a hamper.
So we're making a hamper.
We're making a hamper.
Christmas hamper.
We're making a Christmas hamper.
Yes, we're making a Christmas hamper. So what we're going to do is it's a kind of 2-day process, maybe a 3-day process, kind of depends how organised you are. So I have a list of all the things that I'm going to put in this hamper, and today or tonight, because it's 6:45, we're going to start the 2 things that take the longest. So the hamper that we're making is sort of a Scottish themed hamper. There's Scottish things in it because I live in Scotland and everyone I know is Scottish. So I'm going to make a Dundee cake and I'm going to make a cookie dumpling. Why are you laughing at me?
I don't know, I don't even know why I'm laughing.
I have to explain that it's Scottish stuff, because if I don't, people are going to be like, I don't want to make that, it's full of Scottish stuff.
Okay. They're watching the wrong fucking channel then, aren't they?
Not necessarily. I don't always make Scottish things. Right, anyway, a lot of the stuff in this video I've already made in previous videos, but the point in this video is to show you the quickest and easiest and cheapest way to make a hamper for a gift over like 2 days. So we're starting with the 2 things that take the longest, which is cookie dumpling and Dundee cake. So right now, my oven is preheating at 180 degrees, 160 degrees if you've got a fan oven, gas mark 4 I think that is, and 350 degrees, possibly Fahrenheit. That'll be in the description below, I might be making that up. So that's preheating just now, and then I also have a big, huge pot of water on the boil just now, waiting for the dumpling to go in. The dumpling takes 4 hours, so do not start this at 6:45 at night. Preferably try and start it at 6:45 in the morning, so you've got all day, because it goes in the pot for 4 hours, and then we need to put it in the oven. So I'll be in my bed and he'll do that. So what we'll do is we'll start with the dumpling, because it has to go in the water straight away.
Okay.
Right.
What's my advent calendar?
I put it away, son.
Did I not get you other scales?
No, you kept telling me you were going to, but I never did.
I'm sure I did.
No, you got yourself some scales, son, and it was for your protein stuff, and it's smaller than that, and I can't use it. Right, so in here, do you know what you could do for me? You can get my plain flour, and it's topped up.
Oh, it makes such a mess.
Also, don't make fun of me for the sheer amount of flour I have. I do quite a lot of baking. Also, please sift your flour.
Why aren't you sifting it?
I never sift, but I do.
It's the best part.
Oh, you like sifting, I forget. I never sift, Marcus. I just let you sift sometimes because you enjoy it, but sifting's just one of the things, you know.
You're not giving people good advice.
I do. I tell them to sift, and then I tell them to do as I say, not as I do.
But you're not leading by example.
I believe that people do their own things, and who am I to give advice and tell people they should be like me? Just be yourself. Sift, don't sift, it's all one. So 500 grams of plain flour, then you want 200 grams of beef suet.
Oosh.
Which is basically the fat they take away from the animal's hearts. You can get vegetable suet, 6 to have a dozen really doesn't make a difference what one you use.
Oosh.
You're going to say oosh everything you put it in there? Right, that's cool. Just checking. Right, so 200, usually they come in 250 grams bags, so 200 grams of this.
That's satisfying. Oh fuck. It's alright, you need to do that for dough anyway.
What don't?
How you do? You need to flour the counter.
250 grams of caster sugar. Again, sift this. Why are you laughing at me?
Nothing.
It's like you've never...
What kind of leader are you?
I'm not a leader, alright? I'm just not. Also, is this the first time you've been here? Like, you know I don't sift things, it's you that sift things. Look at the mess.
Well, you asked me to do it, so shut up. That's satisfying. Looks like a landscape. Look. You can't see it, but it does. Right, here's your spoiler, you fucking grumpy bitch.
So next we're going to put in our raisins. And it's 250 grams of them. And it's the same 250 grams of sultanas. Oh, look, the rest of that tub was 248 grams, Marcus.
How many more do you need?
250. Oh, 249. But that was it.
1 gram.
I know, but I'm just telling you because you like the things and you think they're satisfying.
Oh,
whenever
right. I thought you were originally a gram.
No. Right, next we need to put our spices in. So, it's 1 teaspoon, is it? Is it? 1 teaspoon of your spices. So, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Yes. Yes, it is. A teaspoon of ground ginger. A teaspoon of ground allspice. And a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, or you can use fresh nutmeg.
Can you eat nutmeg?
No, that's why I'm putting it in a cake.
I mean, just eat it like this.
You can try. Give it a go.
Will you try to trick me?
No, I'm just telling you, if you really want to try it, you can. No, you got to put that back in, even though I took it out of the bin.
Why? Why done it?
Because it's too small for me to grate.
You might use it in future.
I will always have to grate it, and I can't grate it because it's too small.
Fish.
3 teaspoons of baking powder, sifted.
That's satisfying.
Half a teaspoon of salt. Right, and that's all the dry. So if you're finding that that's fun, then you mix all that through.
Right.
If you're enjoying that, then that's what you can do for me, rather than just being there looking pretty. And I'll clean up this mess for you as well.
Yeah, that's it, mate.
No, it's not.
It's mixed.
You can tell obviously this is a fun activity to do with children. Imagine the microphone wasn't on.
Have you checked? No, it's on.
So now all we need to do is add in the wet ingredients. So the wet ingredients consist of 1 whole Bramley apple, peeled and then grated, which I've already done, and it's went brown, so that's why that's brown. It won't matter if it's brown. You're going to add 2 large eggs into this mix, and I'm just going to pre-mix them into a jug with some milk. Right, so it's 100 millilitres of milk that you add to the 2 eggs. You love eggs.
No, I don't.
Well, that big yolk's no busting.
Where's my advent calendar?
Before you start mixing this, let me quickly do the treacle. So I'm not going to use a measuring spoon for this because treacle's annoying. And before all the comments say, oh, you should put your spoon in a hot cup of water and then it'll slide right off. I can't be bothered. Cannot be bothered. But that is an option for people who have more patience than me. What you can do is have a cup of boiling hot water sitting and then dip your spoon into it, into the treacle, and then the treacle slides right off. But what I'm going to do is drip that straight in there and then use a silicone spatula to peel it off. I would say that's roughly 3 tablespoons, but I do recommend measuring it. But I would say that's 3 tablespoons. Good thing about treacle is it may be a nightmare to get off your spoon and stuff at the time. As soon as you put water in it, it dissolves. Right, so mix that. So what I will say is mixing this will seem like it's never going to come in. It will seem like it's just going to be dry and it's not going to actually come into a dough. Please trust the process, it absolutely does. So I've got Marcus using a big metal spoon because it can cut through the mixture quite easily. The best way, can I see it for a second? The best way to do it is if you've got a spatula or like a thin sort of metal thing like this. So try and scoop from the bottom and then also cut across the actual mixture. like if you're cutting through it and then scrape for the bottom and then cut through. It just means that you're sort of cutting the wet stuff through the dry, but yeah, you're also rotating the dry round. But please trust, this definitely will become liquidy wetty at one point. Just need to keep going with it. So while he's mixing that, I'm going to show you how to actually make the dumpling together, if that makes sense, like tie it up and stuff. Could you... I know. Could you do that there for me? I have this counter to make this. Thank you so much.
Oh, fuck off then.
Yes. How I do it is I get parchment paper and I make like a T shape, but quite a big one. So I would maybe have this length times 2 of paper. So we'll cut that.
My fucking god, man.
I know it's a nightmare, but it does come together, I swear to God.
Cement.
I know. So take your sheets and scrunch them. And while they're scrunched, make them a tiny bit damp. Just run it under the water just out for a couple of seconds. Once you've done that, just shake off any excess water while squishing them so that your greaseproof paper is kind of damp. So, once you've done that, roll it back out again. Being gentle not to rip it, obviously. And then we're going to open it up into a T shape.
I think I've done it.
You probably have, let me see.
It looks like that now.
So it's fully wet now, whereas before it was super dry and you were struggling to actually do anything with it. Right, so, no. So, once your paper's in a T shape and it's all damp and whatnot, grease it. I use spray grease because I'm lazy, but you can just use like oil or whatever, just as long as it's a wee bit greased. That'll do. Get a flour and sprinkle.
So you do need to.
On the paper, not the counter. So use flour to sprinkle the paper, and this flour is going to act as the coated dumpling skin. The skin that sort of bakes at the end. The skin's the best bit. So make sure there's plenty in this middle bit, because obviously that's where the dumpling's going to go, and then the stuff at the sides is going to come up the sides of the coated dumpling, obviously. But that should be enough, because it's all going to fall anyway. That'll do, whatever. That's a big lump, we don't want that.
Should have sifted it.
You don't sift it into the tub you store it in, Jennifer. Who's got time?
I would actually save you so much time.
No, it wouldn't, because it's just going to get compacted in there and then you need to sift it again. Great argument. Right, so what I would do at this point is start loading the dumpling mix into the middle, but I like to pile it quite high because it makes for a rounder dumpling, because obviously gravity exists and you used to start plonking that there, it's just going to spread out and be gross. So I'm using a spatula to get all the good stuff at the sides, but just start plonking it in, and then every time I put some on, I'm putting it on top of the last pile. Smashing. Right, you take them away back there somewhere, and then I need your help at this point.
Right.
So once your big gooey pile is sort of in the middle, take string, I just use parcel string, hand it to your helper because you absolutely need the help at this point. Grab more flour, and I'm just going to dust the top of it, just a wee bit with flour, just because that's the top of the skin. Yeah, no. Right, so now you need to gather this paper up round about it without leaving any gaps at the side. So basically, just do your best. We're going to put like a cloth around about it too, so just do your best to try and make it as tight as you possibly can. So I'm just going to grab them like that, and then grab that straight up. Like so. So on my side I've got this wee gap here, but that's fine, we'll deal with it. Bunch it up as much as you can. So while I'm holding here, right above my hand is where we're going to tie it, and that will allow space for the coated dumpling to expand. So you're stronger than me.
You think?
So what I want you to do is pull the string. So basically pull it as tight as you can and tie it. Smashing. And then so once you've knotted it on this side, best thing to do is basically tie it round a few times, constantly obviously keeping it nice and taut, and just and then keep tying knots in it. Tie another wee knot in it. Going to cut that string off and leave a wee bit hanging, and then with this paper I'm going to create a handle for the actual dumpling. So by that, all I mean is we're just going to tie it up a wee bit, and it just means that it's like almost like a stem, and that will save it from spinning round inside my pot, because the stem will hit off the side of the pot and it won't just like roll around and start spilling its guts everywhere. It will actually stay in this upright position, you know. That's that bit tied. So now we're going to do it again, but with our actual clue. So I use my Gran's tea towel because it's big, it's not fibrous, it's quite a thick material.
Clute is Scots for rag or cloth.
Yes. So it's not fluffy. When I pull it, no fibres come away. And I wonder if it's even got, no, it doesn't tell me what it's made of on it, but this is literally only used for coated dumplings. So straight bang in the middle, and Marcus is going to hold the top of it like that so that it's nice and round shaped still. And we're going to check where our wee bit was here and make that a priority, so that bit comes up first. Right, let go. And then do the exact same thing. So this time Marcus is going to hold it, and then I'm just going to tuck in any wee bits of cloth that maybe could create a hole. Like that wee bit there. Now we're going to tie it again. Basically the exact same way. So I'm going to put it round it, cross it, pull it, and then tie a knot in it. So it's wrapped around a couple of times while being pulled as tightly as possible before I put a knot in it, and then do that again. So there we go. So the coin is in there, there's no gaps in this cloth, and even if there was a tiny gap in the cloth, it's fine because there's not many gaps in the paper, so the chances of actually any liquid getting through are very slim. It's very, very tight, and this is going to be like a wee handle. Literally all you have to do is get your pot boiling, and then once it's boiling, put it down to a simmer, and then just basically plonk it in. So that will go straight in like so, and then you'll see obviously this wee bit here means it's not going to start rolling around because it can only go so far. That's what we want. Put the lid on and then put a timer for 4 hours, and that's you. That's so close to me. But 4 hours, and then if at 4 hours it'll go in the oven. Cool. So we're going to make Dundee cake, which I've never made before, but it's just like every other cake. It's just mix the wet, mix the dry, you're good to go. In a bowl, we're going to mix a wet first. So we're going to mix a butter and sugar and stuff like that. Your boutoir, which I've wrote unsalted, but I'm using salted because I don't really know the difference. I know that one's got salt, and obviously that is the literal difference, but have you ever had a cake and been like, they've used salted butter in that when they shouldn't have? Like, who knows? Exactly, I've never. 180 grams of boutoir, 180 grams of butter, and 180 grams of light brown mascabado sugar, which you absolutely 100% do have to sieve.
So you don't need anything?
Definitely need to sieve that sugar. 100%. While you're doing that, I will zest an orange. So it's the zest of one large orange. I have the largest orange I could find. Just not that large. While I'm doing this, you may have noticed that I'm wearing different merch with Buddha's face on it. This is my Christmas merch, and you can get this one on Teespring. It's a fantastic way to support me if you want to support me. And if you don't, you just want to see me make cakes, that's fine. Also, wash your orange before you start grating the zest off it. I don't know if that's an obvious thing I can tell you or not, but I'd recommend that because you don't want people touching oranges and that in the supermarket, and Wayne's wiping their nose and then putting their hands on their oranges, and then you just start grating it right in your cake.
My next thing is.
Yes. With these. So you mix your sugar and your butter until light and fluffy. Take it behind us. Or over there. somewhere else.
You just want ready meat.
There's just not a lot of room because we're trying to make two very ingredient full cakes at a very small station. So to your light and fluffy sugar and butter, you're going to add your orange zest, and then you're going to add 3 tablespoons of apricot jam or marmalade, whatever one you fancy really. And then you're going to whisk that into oblivion as well.
Oh, okay.
So it should be like a drop-in consistency, or just before drop-in consistency, with just the butter, sugar, jam and zest. And now we have to have 3 large eggs added gradually to this mix. So ideally, make this in like a stand mixer and then just start putting the things in as it's going, just add shit. But we have a hand mixer, so that's what we're doing. So we're going to go over there, and I have already whisked 3 eggs. As Marcus mixes, I'll just pour and then we'll come back. So all the wet is now together, so now we're going to start adding the dry. 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So you want 225 grams of plain flour. We're going to sift our flour and our baking powder into our marmalade butter mixture. And we're sifting this because it's a cake. We didn't sift a dumpling because we're going to boil it for 4 hours and it's a dumpling, so it tends to be quite heavy. But this cake is a cake and it wants it to be as light as possible, hence why we're sifting our flour. We don't usually sift because sifting's boring. Next we want 100 grams of ground almonds, and then we're just going to give this a wee mixy round now. So now we're going to add in some milk and some fruit. So the fruit we're going to add in is cherries, if I can find them, there we go. We're going to add in these cherries, the 100 grams of said cherries. Don't use fresh cherries, use the glace cherries or glassy cherry, I don't know how to pronounce it, but that one, that's the one you should use. Glacier cherries? Glass? I don't know. 100 grams anyway. Next we're adding in our dried mixed fruit mix, 500 grams of that, and you're going to add 2 tablespoons of milk. Now we're going to give it a good mix. Once all that's fully mixed through and you're happy with it, and it's quite a thick cake batter, we're going to put it in a tin. I am using a 20 centimetre tin with a loose bottom on it, and I'm going to line the very bottom of it with parchment paper, and I'm going to do what I usually do, put butter on my hand and just smear it all the way around the tin, all the way at the bottom, even some on the paper, and then we're going to put the mix in this. Butter in hand. There's probably a much more elegant way to do this, but this is what I'm doing. If you're wondering where Marcus is went to, he's away for a cigarette. I can appreciate that I'm coming across quite stressed making these. It's not stressful to make these cakes whatsoever. I'm only stressed just now because I've started this so late at night. I ideally didn't want to, but such is life. That is now greased, and we're just going to plonk our paper in. As long as you give yourself enough time, making a hamper is an absolute doddle. Take your mix and start plonking it into your tin. Once your mixer's in the tin, flatten it out, because we want it to be nice and flat, because we're going to decorate the top of it with almonds. So you need to get whole blanched almonds, and then you have to boil the kettle, cover them in boiling water for 5 minutes, then drain them, and then leave them to dry. And then you put them in your cake. So make sure you do all of that first before you start using these. And what we're going to do is we're going to start placing them in a nice wee pattern all the way around the cake. You'll need about 100 grams of these blanched almonds. So I did my best with decorating that there. This is what I have done. You'll see the almonds are sort of all around the sides. So this now goes in your oven for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, you'll reduce the heat of your oven to 160 degrees, 140 degrees, you've got a fan oven and gas mark 3. You'll then keep the cake in the oven at the lower temperature for anywhere between 50 to 80 minutes, checking every 10 minutes after 50 minutes, if that makes sense. Check it with a skewer every 10 minutes after 50 minutes has been at the lower temperature, and then as soon as it's not wet anymore, take it out, and then I'll show you what we do when we take it out because I have to go back in again. But we'll get to that. So for now, this is going in the oven. So I'll be back in about 2 hours time to show you what we do with the Dundee cake once it's fully cooked inside. it's not that exciting. We're basically just putting a glaze on top and then putting it back in the oven for 2 minutes, then it'll rest. Now, the important thing about Dundee cake is that it realistically has to be left for 2 days before you cut it in half or cut it into slices, whatever you want to do. So that's why we're doing it straight away. Hello again. So we're going to make the glaze for the top of the Dundee cake. The glaze is fairly simple. 2 teaspoons of caster sugar, and then it's 1 tablespoon of milk. All we're going to do is just gently heat this in the microwave until all the sugar's dissolved, and then once it is dissolved, we're going to basically brush it on top of the almonds that we decorated the cake with, then put it back in the oven for 2 minutes. So my cake is now out of the oven. I have put a skewer through it and it came out, didn't come out wet or anything, it came out just with crumbs on it, and that's what you're looking for. So I've got my milk here with my sugar in it, and I've got a wee brush. And we're basically just brushing that stuff on top of the almonds and on top of the cake. Really, basically that's it. Hello?
Well, that's what the almonds were for.
Yeah, they're for decoration. Oh, you weren't here, that's right. So this is just a glaze of milk and caster sugar.
Looks nice.
Thank you. You'd hate it.
I know.
So 2 minutes in the oven now that the glaze is on, and then it comes out. You cool entirely in the pot. Once it's fully cooled, you can take it out of the pot or out of its tin, and then wrap it in tin foil and then don't touch it for 2 days. And then after 2 days you can cut it. Our plan for our hamper is we're basically going to cut that cake into 4 and then wrap a quarter up, because the hamper's only really good for 1 person or 2 people. So we're going to basically cut it into 4, and then each quarter will be wrapped really nice and it will go into the hamper. So that's what we're going to do with that. Marcus has just filled the kettle because we need to constantly keep the water level in the quilty dumpling at the right level, because you don't want it like just boiling at the bottom and then not cooking at the top. So I should have mentioned that earlier, but make sure that you're checking the water levels of your quilty dumpling. It's always really full of boiling water. How much longer has the quilty dumpling got, Marcus?
1 hour and 50 minutes.
That's not bad, halfway there.
Alright.
2 hours later.
Everybody has a floor like that in their kitchen.
How else am I meant to organise this shite? Right, this is how I take my quilty dumpling out, and there is probably a much better way to do this, but this is what I do. Take my gloves that Bob, the patron, gave me, and I use my tongs to grab the tap of it. These aren't waterproof gloves, they're just heat-proof gloves, so it's a bit daft, but yeah. Put it on a towel on a heat-proof mat thing, so a bit of marble, and then just start pinging the string off. Boop. And then undress the clout. I've got my oven tray with some tin foil on it, ready for the oven. Give it a wee swoosh. Right. This is just paper, so we can just cut this away. You don't really need to cut the string. Hot, don't use the ungloved hand. I'm so stupid. I'm sure, yeah, wear gloves and then touch it with your ungloved hand. So, all this stuff around here that I point out with my non-fingered finger, see that stuff there, that's the flavour that we used, and that's the skin, and that's what we're going to put it in the oven to harden it for. So, I don't know the proper way to do this, but what me and Mark do is just fling it on the oven tray and hope for the best.
Right, set the oven tray on top of it and then flip it upside down.
Aye, pretty much. Right, so stand back a wee bit, Marcus. Right, hold it, because I think I usually get a hand under it first, don't I?
Careful.
I know. 1, 2.
No, put the tray on it first.
I think so.
Yeah. Right, watch. Yeah, okay.
Oh no, oh no.
What have you done?
I broke it, but that's okay. He's fine. We just squish it back together again. That's fine. That's fine. It's still sort of on the tray. Right.
Do you want to lift it up and put another bit of foil underneath?
I don't think I can lift it up without it breaking now.
Do that. Very careful. To the right. There we go.
Hopefully it's just still mushy enough that it keeps its shape, but I mean it kind of has. Just tuck that bit in, that's fine. And when you cut it, we'll cut it for this side anyway, nobody will know the difference, it'll be alright. And then we just put it in the oven. Heat. So I'm pretty sure I gave you the wrong instructions before, but it's 180 degrees if you've got a fan, 200 degrees if you don't have a fan, and basically 15 minutes or so until all the gooey stuff at the outside kind of crisps up into a wee skin. And that's us, and then once that's crisped up, then it basically just has to rest for like 24 hours, and that's us. That's quite dumpling made.
Grand.
Please comment below a much safer and easier way to transfer quilty dumplings to an oven tray. Thanks. Hello, Edit and Sue here. So I've got to the very end where my quilty dumplings now in the oven, and it's at 31 minutes already. So what I'm going to do is make my hamper video 2 videos, because if I don't, it's going to be like an hour long and nobody wants that. So I'll do 2 half-hour videos. I hope that's okay. So the next video is going to be everything else that goes into the hamper, plus the actual like making of the hamper. So the next video is actually 2 days worth of footage, but it should obviously be within half an hour because it's smaller things. Just these cakes were quite big cakes to make. There's a lot of ingredients and a lot of odd instructions that aren't really that common. So yeah, I didn't know it was going to be 2 videos when I was recording it, or as I said that at that point, rather than coming on looking like a potato and being like, yeah, this is now the end of the video. So thank you for watching this far, and I will see you in a week's time for the rest of the hamper video. Thank you for your patience. I'm really sorry, and yeah, have a nice day. I'll see you later. Goodbye.